Sherri, if you would go ahead and introduce yourself, take a minute or two, and let people know where your agency is and your name, what you guys focus on, that sort of thing.
I am Sherri Pali, and my agency is in Tremont, Utah, which is northern Utah. I am focusing mostly on commercial lines and home and auto. That's where I do the most of my book of business is. I've been in the insurance industry since I was 16 years old. Started when I was a junior in high school. And here I am, owning my own agency now.
Yeah, and what an awesome journey it's been. I mean, we were talking a little bit before we went live, and it really does blow my mind where Sherri has gotten to. So I really respect. I mean, Sherri even said this is her first time doing any sort of live stream, so you're not going to see her online much. But to me, she is like a sleeping giant, where she embodies like the entrepreneurial spirit of being an insurance agent. So I really am pumped about this interview, Sherri. So thanks again thanks for joining us. You've been in insurance, since you were 16 years old. So this has been a long time, kind of a career path for you. This has been your life.
Yes.
Could you tell us, if we can go back in time, before you started your own agency, what was your position? What were you doing? What carriers were you working with? Can you give us a background of where you were before you made the jump?
So when I was in high school, they had what they call a work release, and offices in the community that I live in would have students come in for a couple hours a day just to work and get a fill. And I was working for a farmer's agent at the time. And I did that for my last 2 years of high school. Then I moved and went to college, and I actually found an agency with farmers that had 3 agents on it that I worked while I was going to college. Being from a small town, I decided I wanted to move back home, and I started with an independent agent here in this small town, and I worked for them for 29 years as a customer service rep.
You were loyal. That's a long time. That's awesome.
And I just decided that I needed a change. I wasn't going anywhere. I just needed a change.
Was there anything specifically that made you feel that way? Because after 29 years, did it feel like there was the ceiling was too low? Did you feel like there was more opportunity elsewhere? Was there any other impetus for that feeling?
The agency that I was with, the owner was in the process of retiring, and so a new owner came in, and it just wasn't the same feel. It wasn't the same personal agency that I had grown in, with the same personal touch with the clients, and it just didn't feel right.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know what you mean. When things change and the feeling that you get when you go to work is different.
Yes.
That absolutely cause a real desire to make a change in your job and in your career, so that you have that excitement and enjoyment when you go back to work. So at that point, so you knew that you had to make a change. What did your mind immediately go to starting an independent agency, or what avenues were you looking at that point?
No, I had no clue that I was going to start my own agency. I had gone out and I had interviewed with a few agencies, and it just didn't feel right. They weren't willing to pay what I wanted, and they weren't with my experience. And I decided, if they're not going to pay me, I'll just work for myself, and I may not get a paycheck. I'm still working towards getting a paycheck, but I'm building a book that is mine, and I can mold it the way that I want to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's something that I hear pretty frequently. right? Like, because it's a lot of people who bring a lot of value to agencies. They don't feel like they get paid what they're worth, and it's hard to negotiate because the agency owner has all the control. And
Right.
so what's one of the avenues you do? You can start your own business, and then you eat what you kill. Like you get paid exactly what you're worth. As you were thinking about going independent at this point, right? That you felt like
Mhm.
you weren't getting paid your worth. What challenges did you encounter as you were trying to get carrier appointments or just overall trying to start your agency?
Well, I knew if I went out on my own to try to get carrier appointments, they are going to require so much production each year. And I knew as my just being myself in the agency, I wasn't going to be able to do that. And so I looked other ways to find it. And I came across Firefly online. And I thought, oh, I'm just going to reach out to them and see what happens. And I knew that I could get a lot of carriers, but I didn't have to meet production requirements with each one. And so it was a good fit.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. So one of the problems that you specifically were finding is you couldn't get the contracts because the production requirements were they were just kind of restrictive, right? Like
Yeah,
it would only allow you to get one or two carriers, and then you wouldn't be able to help out your clients. And heaven forbid, if you still don't produce, you could lose the contracts.
right.
Okay, and so that obviously is a strength of Firefly, right? Where you get the direct appointments with everybody, and there are no quotas, there are no production requirements with each individual carrier. I mean, it really is a super unique program. Now, that's not to say that Firefly is the right fit for every agent, but for agents like you, where that like getting the direct appointment is really important, it takes away the burden of the production
Yeah.
requirement, and a lot of agents really appreciate that. So, did you have any concerns? Like when you joined up with Firefly with our network. There's obviously a lot of excitement. Did you have any concerns? When you were getting started in the back of your mind?
The biggest concern is I was going to fail. I thought, oh, I'm going to start this, and I've never been out there talking to people on the front end. I would service them, service it when it came in, but it's been really good. I've been able to get out of my comfort zone and go out and meet people, and referrals. If you treat a client right, the referrals that you get back is just amazing. And that's how I grow most of my business, is through referrals through my customers that I currently have.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that for a while. So usually that's one of the questions I ask later. But I think this just dovetails so nicely with what you just said, because a lot of agents, I mean, pretty much everybody has some level of concern about failure, because most insurance agents fail when you're starting your own agency. But the marketing and your ability to get in front of prospects, that is a huge indicator of whether or not you can succeed. And one of the things that I find so impressive about your agency is that you weren't a producing CSR. It's not like you had relationships lined up. There weren't mortgage brokers and accountants and life insurance agents who were sending you business. You just thought, no, I know some people. I have
Yep.
friends here, so I'm going to go for it. So how did you, like when you say you treat somebody right, can you explain a little bit, what are you doing when you write a client that results in referrals?
When I write a client, I treat them like I would want to be treated, with customer service, and they're not just a number in my agency. I send them a birthday card. I send them a Christmas card. I send them an email every once in a while with just, hey, how are you doing? I'm just following up. And for every referral, I send out either a gift card for a $5 off of a lube for your car service,
Mm-hmm.
or a soda gift certificate to a soda place in town.
Yeah.
And I've sent that out to several, and a lot of them are the same people, but I do it every time I get a referral from someone.
Yeah. That's great. And so, like, just to to be clear on my end, right? Because with Firefly, we have a lot of agents we work with and a lot of clients. When you're sending out birthday cards, are you are you handwriting them, or do you have any
Yes.
software? So you're handwriting birthday letters out to your
Yes.
clients. That's incredible.
Yes. And Christmas cards.
Yeah, man. All right, that's great. If anybody, I'm just curious now, if anybody watching, because I think a lot of people do send out cards. If you have a solution on like automating that process, particularly Christmas cards where you can do a bunch of them, I'm just curious what you viewers do, what you agents do to send out those touch points throughout the year. But I think that's great. So Sherri, when you started working, or when you started the process of starting your agency, let's take a step back.
Okay.
What do you like? If you can remember when you started, how was the onboarding? Like, do you remember how fast did you get carrier appointments, and what was the training like?
It was really good. It took me probably, I think I started the process in like July, and I was up and going the first part of September. By the time I got all the training and got all the carrier appointments. But it was great. I mean, there was somebody there holding my hand the whole time and doing the training online and making sure that I had all my paperwork in. And because you got to remember, I was getting my agency license at the time. I mean, I had to start from scratch. So it took me a little bit of time. I was licensed, but it took me a little bit of time to get everything else lined up. So
yeah, but the appointments came in quickly. You felt like
yes.
like you were you not necessarily hand holding, but it felt like somebody was there every step of the way.
Yes.
Now, as a CSR, you were an independent CSR. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you did know some of the coverages coming in, like one like Safeco or Nationwide.
Yeah, I dealt with Travelers and Liberty Mutual and those.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Got it. Yeah. So like it probably expedited your training a little bit. That even on the service end, it's so helpful to know the systems, because that's what can be so overwhelming for agents. Like you talked about where you started at a farmer's agent. We have tons of agents that we work with that are captive, and one of the most overwhelming things, it's not necessarily the underwriting, it's the systems. Just figuring out where do you check all this stuff and how do you get this policy bound.
I remember when I came from Farmers and I started in an independent agency. And you got to remember, I'm old, so it was when they were still rating out of a book.
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
Microfiche was the software they'd send a microfiche each week. But anyway, I was almost overwhelmed coming from a captive to an independent agency, because to learn every company's guidelines and underwriting and requirements, it was overwhelming. But it does give you a lot more options to write that business as an independent agent than a captive agent.
Definitely.
And that's what I like about being independent.
All right. So now we've talked a little bit about the onboarding process, what that was like for you. What results did you see in the first few months? So you were dealing with captive agents, you were starting to reach out to friends and family. Do you remember like what sort of results did you have right out of the gate?
Oh, it's been too long ago. It's been 2.5 years. My memory's not that. No, I was right out of the gate. I was able to get a lot of quotes going, and I didn't write them all, but I did a lot of quotes.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think my background and my experience helped me in that area a lot, just because people knew who I was already, and they knew that I had the experience. Not to say that a new agent can't do that, but I had a lot of support behind me.
Yeah. Well, and that you had the community roots, and that you kind of had the clout, right? Where it's like, I'm a new agency, but I've got, 29 years behind me.
I've been here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, so here's one of the benefits of you being with Firefly is I do have your numbers. And so, and I asked Sherri beforehand if I could share a couple of these, because I was just super impressed that not having a ton of relationships, like as far as like referral sources, and not having a ton of experience producing, she really did well. So your first premium ever, right? Like the first recording that we have is September of 2019. It was $500 of premium.
Yep.
Okay. And then by the end of October, so this is 1 month later, you were at $40,000 of premium. It's incredible. It means you wrote 39,500 all by yourself, really in your first real month. And then your second month, you were at 65,000. So you grew by another 25,000. And then after that, you were at 87 and then 100. I mean, so within a few months, you were at $100,000 of premium. And if you fast forward to today, just in January, you grew by, I'm trying to do the math here real quick. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, 35,000 in January as well. And is it still just you, or do you have somebody else in the office helping at this point?
No, it's just me.
Yeah, and so that is incredible. I mean, like you are kind of an exception as far as the ability to like just dive in and make it happen. But you're also, to me, like a pillar of light. Where it's like this is so hopeful, right? Like if an agent has the effort and you have some experience and you go and just talk to people, you can absolutely make this business work. And so so just total tip of the cap to you, Sherri. So let's keep talking about your current agency. Like, do you have, as far as results, as you started your own business, do you know what is like a typical closing ratio for you?
I think I'm at about an 80%.
That's incredible. That is so good. And I say this every video, and maybe I'm the one that's wrong. I always try to set realistic expectations, but so far everybody that we've spoken to has said that they're between 75 and 80%. And I think a lot of that, and here's the real caveat, a lot of that has to do with where your prospects are coming from. If they're referrals, if they're people or they've been, as I said, referred to you by somebody else that they trust, and you come into that relationship with even an ounce of trust, your closing ratio skyrockets. If you're purchasing leads, which can work, but you're working completely cold, your closing rate is almost always going to be lower. I mean, even
I tried that.
Yeah,
I tried that. It didn't work.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's good to have that sense of realism. And I think there are people who make it work. They have a system. But in my experience, even with our carriers, if you're purchasing leads and working them, a lot of times they're like 5 to 10%. Yeah. But there are some agents who they make it work. And if they can make it work, then I've also known, not within Firefly, but I've known agents who do really well buying leads, but they just have a process in place and they work it and they work it hard.
Yeah.
So another question as far as results, right? So we've talked a little bit about your premium results. We've talked about your closing ratio. What about like the impact on your personal life, right? Like emotionally and like job satisfaction. How has starting your own agency impacted that part of your life?
My kids say that I'm a lot happier.
Yeah. When they're the ultimate judge,
Yeah, because I can, if I have an appointment or if I need to go somewhere, I can close the office and I can go. I'm working longer hours, but if I need to take my parents to the doctor or help with the grandkids, I can close and put a sign on my door and have my phones forwarded and be gone.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, you're your own boss. You can do what you need to do. So take your laptop with you. I went snowmobiling with my family for a few days, and I just took my laptop and did work on it while I was gone. So,
yeah. So what I'm hearing is there's a ton of freedom, and that's allowed you to live life more fully, and evidently, according to your kids, it's made you happier.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is so good to hear, and that's one of the things I love talking to agents when you're having success professionally and it impacts you personally. What a blessing. That's really how it should go. So I'm really happy to hear that, Sherri. All right. So if you could talk to an agent who is thinking about making this sort of a jump in their lives, not necessarily with Firefly, right? But just overall, if they're thinking, maybe I need to make a change, maybe I need to start an independent agency, what advice would you give to them?
I would, if you're thinking about it, I would just go for it. That's it. just takes that jump. And that's where I was at the point. I had to just decide, am I going to stay doing what I was doing? And I finally just decided I am just going to jump into it and I'm going to do it and see what happens. If I fail, I fail. But if I succeed, then it's even going to be better. So, but I did have a great support system behind me, helping me along the way to tell me, yeah, you should do that. So you can not do it and regret it in the years to come. I mean, I'm 50 years old. I was 50 years old when I started my agency. That's pretty old.
Yeah, well, it's we've had older, but
it worked. It's working.
Yeah.
So
no, that's fantastic. And I would add on to that where if an agent, if any of you watching, if you're thinking, should I start my own agency? A lot of times I do encourage agents to make the jump, but there's two really big factors that I would say indicate whether or not you can make it. Because like we mentioned earlier, a lot of agents fail. So the two factors are, do you have a marketing plan in place? Now, Sherri here didn't necessarily have like a robust marketing plan where she would say, oh, I had Facebook leads and I had mailers going out. She just knew people in her community and it worked out for her. But what is your marketing plan that not only can you make sales like Sherri, right? Don't just come out of the gate selling, but 2.5 years later that you're still growing. Yeah. And so that's a huge key. And the second one is, do you have finances in place to make the jump? Because if you don't, you are starting a business. And so if you're thinking about it, if you don't have the money in place or you don't have a way to consistently get in front of people, I would say maybe hold off for a little while. But if those two things are applicable to you, you have a marketing and you have the money to start and you have the itch, that's a pretty good sign that there might be greener pastures elsewhere.
Yes.
Okay. So let's see. We already talked about your marketing strategy, which deals a lot with referrals and having that personal touch. Are there any automations or software or programs in your agency that you routinely use that are really important to your day-to-day activities?
As far as like the Easy Links or?
Sure. I mean, if Easy Links is something you use every day.
That absolutely. Is what, yes. You have got to have a management system in place for an independent agency.
Yeah.
And that's because that is what saves you from quoting, where you have all those options that you can quote with all those carriers. If you can put the information in once and get 20 different quotes back, and that gives you a starting point, that's amazing. You've got to use that.
Yes. Yeah. And so that specifically is like the comparative rater, right? Where you're able to do a bunch of quotes at once. And then even the management system side where you're able to set tasks for yourself and you can do email campaigns, you can send out text messages, you can, it helps you with renewals.
All that stuff, yes.
Yeah, it's huge. So Easy Links is important for a lot of our agents. By the way, there was Jessie who was, she was watching. I'm not sure if she's here anymore, but we asked about sending postcards. She uses a software or a program, a company called thanks.io. And apparently that can automate some of the cards you're sending out. So if at any point you start getting like arthritis in your hand, right, and you want to automate the system, check out thanks.io. She uses that, and that might be a way to save you some time. All right.
The other thing I do is Facebook. I post quite a bit on Facebook. And I just did a campaign for trying to get grain bin rescue equipment for our local fire department.
Oh, yeah.
And I put that on Facebook with the help of Firefly. And it had over 2,000, like 2,700 reactions to that post that I did.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I think everything that you can do like that helps.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it helps get your name out there. Now, what's fun about that one, and by the way, I'll give a shout out to Sam. Sam is one of the people here at Firefly. He does a lot with marketing and helping people with social media. He's the one that helped you out with that, right?
Yes, Sherri? He's awesome.
Yeah, he's fantastic. He is so much better at Facebook than I am, or most people. But what's fun about that sort of post is it grows your brand without talking about insurance. Like it's about your fire department. It was brilliant, and all the reactions, all the views that you got, spot on. I mean, that is exactly what you want to be doing with your Facebook, instead of just occasionally posting like, hey, because sometimes I'm friends with quite a few agents, and sometimes they say, hey, if you want a quote on your home and auto, reach out, and it's like, oh, I'm really sorry you posted that. Like, you're not going to get many leads that way. But good luck. I hope it works. I hope I'm wrong.
And I will do that every once in a while, just to remind them that I'm here.
Yep.
But I post a lot of like making cookies with my grandkids, or just doing little things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I've seen some posts like with cookies. So I've seen some agents who will say stuff like, oh, I'm making cookies as a thank you to my clients. Come pick some up this Friday between 2 and 5, something like that. And so it's a social post, but it still ropes insurance back into it. I think those are the type of comments that rock. And I have seen some of your posts on Facebook, and I saw the fire department one, which I thought was brilliant. Let's see. Oh, by the way, Sam posted on here. So he's watching, and he said, thanks for the kind words. And he said, Sherri is a pleasure to work with. And he nailed it. I mean, like, nobody's, I don't think anybody's doubting that. All right. So is there anything else that you might, that you'd want to share with agents? Either like anything that you're doing really well? Let's end with this question. Okay. Is there anything that you do really well in your agency that you feel like other local agents might be overlooking a little bit?
One thing that I do offer, and I have them take it up about quite a bit, is when you get teenage drivers, I will tell them to bring the drivers in, and I'll sit down and visit with them and let them know that, driving is a privilege that their parents let them do, but it's also a big liability for their parents to have them out on the roads. And I will sit down and review that. A lot of times coming from somebody else besides parents, it sinks in a little better.
Yeah.
But so I think that's one of the opportunities that you have to mold those young drivers.
Yeah, that's right.
And to know the importance of insurance.
Yeah, and it can also, in a way, maybe even help with parenting. Like, as you mentioned, maybe the teenagers will listen a little bit to you, as opposed to like the eye roll that their parents are almost certainly getting. Oh man, so that's great. So with some of the other agents I've spoken to, it seems like you have the same. Like, one of the things that's driving your agency is personal touch, right? That you're literally still handwriting birthday cards and Christmas cards, and that's pretty rare these days, because there's software to do that. And for you, it's like, nope, I'm going to do this, and even the idea of having conversations with teenage drivers to review the coverage and then to tell the drivers, hey, look, you've got a responsibility here. That is not something that a lot of agents do. All right. So we did have a question from Bill, the same one who has the teenager. So he said, how do you handle bookkeeping and other business aspects? So kind of aside from insurance, what like, do you have any advice on the business side?
I use QuickBooks for my bookkeeping. On the other side of that, there's really not a whole lot of. Firefly does most of the bookkeeping stuff on their end. It's just an Easy Links does it. I mean, it's.
So was there anything
where all the stuff is? So
yeah. So on the business operating, like the business ownership side, was there anything that caught you off guard? Because I know a lot of agents I talk to, they're like, I don't even know where to start. And really it's since I do it so frequently and walk agents through it, it's not that tough. But was there anything that caught you off guard that was more difficult than you expected when you were getting started out and getting everything in place?
No, not really, because I've been through it. I had been working for 29 years in that agency, so I knew that I had to have an operating account, and I knew I had to have a trust account with the bank. And I guess that's where I'm with all my background, is I kind of knew where I needed to start, where a new agent wouldn't know all that stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And to be clear, there's not that much, and we can help walk agents through it, but there is, like, you have the premium sweep account. If you have an LLC, you have to get an entity insurance license. So not just the Secretary of State, but you have to have an entity insurance license so that you can legally receive commissions to the entity, and the entity pays you. And then I guess QuickBooks, just kind of to track your own business costs and such.
Yeah. And then the E&O, that's all taken care of through
Firefly
whoever
as well.
decide to go with. So
yeah.
Well, taken care of.
Yeah. Well, again, I don't want this to be a commercial for Firefly, but we do make it easy. I mean, there is the idea of like bookkeeping, that you get paid from Firefly, and we're the suckers that have to do all the reconciliation and accounting on our end. And then you just get 1 1099 from us at the beginning of the year instead of, 20 1099s from each individual carrier. I mean, so it does make it a lot easier when you've got some back office support in the form of whether it's Firefly, but having some back office support to do some of those.
Yeah. I mean, that could be tasks with anybody. With the other independent agency, they were doing the same type thing. So that I was with before. So
that's right. Okay. So those are all the questions I have from this end. So I think you're all set, Sherri, and you rocked it. Thank you so much for joining us on the live stream. And thank you to you agents that joined us today. We'll go ahead and put the replay on here later, and we'll see you guys next Friday. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ben.